Welcome back to the Live Free and Diet Hard podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Coates. Join me along with industry leaders and friends on a quest to get more people through the gym door and eating and living healthier. Join me where evidence meets empathy while rejecting fitness industry fads and extremism. Let's begin. Chris Bailey, author of, I'm holding in my hands here, The Productivity Project, which is where I first found you. Author of Hyperfocus, a fantastic book. Author of How to Calm Your Mind, and now your new book out just right away, Intentional. It's an honor to have you on.
It's so good to be here, man. How are you? Nice to meet you too.
Nice to meet in person. And I mean, you're originally from Red Deer, and I live in Edmonton, Alberta, though I'm originally from Newfoundland, so there's sort of geographic commonality.
A newfie. I
Yes.
always love meeting a newfie.
I don't have the accent, however, so that
No.
those people.
Did you ever?
No,
No, okay.
not ever a thing. It's common though. All right. I want to take a bit of a trip through some of the different concepts in your books, but let's start with the new one. Do most people live without intention, or are their intentions anchored to the wrong values?
Oh, what a question. I would say that, and this was kind of a surprising thing looking at the research, it's impossible to live without intention, as weird as that might sound, because there's always an intention behind what we're doing, even when what we're doing is a habit. And you might think, what the hell? What's he even talking about? But when you look at the research on intentionality, not all intentions have to be fully thought out. An intention is just a plan that we're going to do something. And so we form plans to do things automatically. We call them habits. We form intentions very thoughtfully as well. So, we have a quiet moment of reflection and we think, this is what I'm going to do today. This is what I want to get out of the day. And so this was kind of a surprising thing. Intentions aren't necessarily deliberate, but when they are automatic, we risk, and I think you hit on it in the question, we risk falling into a trap of doing things that aren't meaningful, that don't lead to progress, that aren't productive, that are just kind of being on autopilot mode, doing things in response to whatever comes our way, whatever's latest and loudest, that's what we engage with. And that's a slippery slope, right? Like habits are amazing when it comes to automatic behavior. The good habits that we have, well, there's a lot of unproductive habits too, of course. But it's really a slippery slope when we're in that autopilot mode. So the book is essentially an arsenal, a toolbox of tools to understand what is intention, even because it's a very poorly understood idea, I think. But how do we craft intentions so they're actually motivating? And like you're saying, it gets to the heart of values, which there's hardcore research on as well, fascinating research.
The treatment in the book has been wonderful, and I'm given the time constraint. It just came out. I ripped through the audio as quick as I could.
Yeah.
And about halfway through, so I've gotten through the value. But what you just described with intentions, there's always this joke, this meme about, and this is a little uncharitable, but crackheads, addicts who they will hustle to find drugs, right?
Yeah.
And it's sort of a, hey, if you're not motivated to go and do the thing that's positive, like, listen, there's a crackhead out there who's outworking you. But if you think about it through the lens of intentionality, they're very intentional in the behavior to achieve their goal. So the second chapter is on values, third chapter is on goals, but you mentioned values. So how does clarity on your values help you set your intentions?
Oh, I love that. Yeah. And I love that example. You're right. It is like whatever, but it reminds me of, you cut somebody open with a knife. Like it really depends on whether you're an assailant or a surgeon, right? Intention is everything with a lot of these things, and values. Okay, and I need to get something out of the way when it comes to values, because whenever I hear the term values, my eyes kind of glaze over. As somebody who's really driven to get to the bottom of the research behind topics like this, because whenever I hear the term values, I think of all the cheesy, terrible corporate exercises I've done in the past where some like consultant comes in and he's got a list of like 100 values on a sheet of paper and he says, circle the values that are most important to you. And there's no research behind that though. You know, you very quickly find looking at the research on values. The research on values shows that there are 12 fundamental motivations that we all share in varying amounts. And these are what motivate us most at our core. So I'm just going to list out 12, all 12, because a lot of people won't buy or listen to the book. And I think people need to know this. It's essential knowledge because this is what motivates you. So as I'm reading the list, I have it in front of me here. I'm cheating. People should know. I don't know these off. Well, I know them off by heart, but I'd probably drop one or two. So you'll probably notice that certain ones of them stick out to you and others are like, no, I don't want that. We all have a different reaction to them. So here they are. Self-direction, which includes self-directed thought and action, going our own way. Stimulation, which is novelty and excitement. Hedonism, right? It has sultry connotations, but it just means pleasure. I call it pleasure in the book because hedonism is such a loaded word. It could be everything from enjoying a burrito or a good workout or the sultry stuff. What's
And
that?
you rate hedonism in particular with food experience as one of your key
Oh yeah.
ones.
Yeah. Like sushi's the way to my heart, my friend. Like yeah, hedonism is my second top value, second most value after self-direction. Achievement is another value. Power is another value, whether power over people or resources. Face is another value. So face is how you come across to other people and whether you avoid humiliation. Security, whether personal or societal security, value that's gone up in recent years, as you might imagine. Tradition, right, is another fundamental value. Customs, norms of the groups we're a member of. Conformity is a fundamental value that a lot of people have. It's living within the expectations other people have of you. Humility. You know, we're both Canadian. I feel this is a high value up in Canada. Humility. It's recognizing our significance in things. Universalism, which is protecting the welfare of people and of nature. And benevolence, which is kindness, it's service. And so you look at like fitness, for example, and you see that depending on what you're doing, your motivation really, really matters with something like fitness. So and actually there's interesting research that depending on whether somebody's gender, depending on somebody's culture, people have different motivations generally with their values and fitness. So women, for example, are more likely to see fitness as a pleasure value thing, as a hedonistic value thing, because they feel good in their bodies, right? That's the goal. Whereas other people, you know, they're more motivated by power, right? You know, feeling powerful, or face, you know, looking good to other people, or achievement, achieving a good body, benevolence. Some people, you know, older folks probably too, you know, having
Security.
a good, but yeah, having like a
Security.
good body. Yeah, security, feeling secure in your own body. Benevolence, right? Being able to keep up with your grandkids so you can take care of them. So you can see that all, and humility I find interesting with fitness because you get the people who are super jacked and then they wear sweaters all the time and hide it. And then you get the people who are like, you know, who are more achievement oriented. They're kind of opposing one another on the values wheel. But that's just fitness, right? Stimulation is another, right? Getting the pump up at the gym. There's any value could motivate any goal. And so that's the key, right? So if you have like a goal to get fit, to have six-pack abs by beach season or whatever, and that's connected with the value of face, right? It's connected with how you come across to other people. But maybe you don't care about face. Maybe you don't care how you're perceived by other people. Maybe you want achievement instead. You want to achieve a body that you're proud of. Building the goal around that instead, it can make the difference between being motivated to do something and not. So these values I'm happy I went through all 12, but because you could see yourself in some of them and not see yourself in others. It's fascinating.
I love where you went with that. And I teased that out of the book as well, that you can find a lot of different paths. It's just, I think the key is getting really clear on your values and then how it
Yeah.
aligns with a specific goal. And is it fair to say
Yeah.
that, physical fitness health could be seen more as a goal, or at least through that lens, and it's just aligning value with goal?
Yeah, exactly. It's so in the book, I introduced something that I call the intention stack, which,
Mm,
in our life, we have all these different levels of intentionality. And it's an interesting thing. It's kind of a complex thing when you don't have the visual in front of you. So I'll try to do an illustration for people listening to the pod. So
mm.
the intention stack, it looks kind of like a funnel almost, where at the top, you have your values. Then below that, you have your priorities in your life. Then below that, you have your goals. So the width of all these things is the timeline, how long an intention is. So values are the biggest, longest intentions we have in our life because we want to express them over the length of our life. They're very stable over time. Our priorities, right? Health, fitness would be a priority in our life. Financial security, whatever our goal might be. Then you have that goal that is an expression of that priority and an expression of that value. So you have the goal to, six. I don't know why this comes to, but six pack abs by beach season. It's just like a classic stereotypical kind of thing. But it fits with the priority of being healthy and strong, which fits with whatever value motivates you the most, whether that be security or self-direction or hedonism or achievement or benevolence, whatever. But then you have intentions that are smaller than your goals, right? And that's where the rubber meets the road because we all know this. It's not enough to set a goal. We need to see how that goal will look on a daily basis. So it's not enough to have that goal. We need to see, okay, what's the weekly plan here? What's the daily plan? What's the plan in general? All the way down to what we're doing in the moment. And so this is the ultimate kind of expression of a goal where we can't just define the goal. We need to define what's the value? What will make me care? What will make me care? And what will I actually do?
Is this a key to, people are great at starting things. We're
Yeah.
recording this right after the new year, right? This is
Yeah.
a classic time for that. People aren't particularly great at finishing things on average.
Yeah.
Is this the key to finishing things?
Yeah.
Is being intentional through the lens of values?
Yes. Yes, it is. The key to finishing what you start, according to the research, is becoming more intentional across all the different layers of intention in your life, from your values to your priorities, to your goals, to your plans, to your daily intentions. Yeah.
Is part of this also identifying where your values are in conflict with a goal like fitness in
Yeah.
this case? Are they competing?
Yeah. Yeah. And so often our values are in conflict with one another too. And that's that's the frustrating thing, and in my opinion, the interesting thing. So I find this with myself in fitness, where I value hedonism, pleasure so high, where I love Uber Eats. It's I don't know what percent of my monthly budget goes to Uber Eats, but it's an issue. But because I talked about it on the podcast, I can probably expense dinner tonight. So there maybe, I don't know. I'd have to ask the CRA and my accountant. But but the hedonism value for me, it conflicts with health for me. It fits within that security value, like you mentioned. I want to feel secure in my body. I want to be proud of my body too, and I am. I want to be self-directed too in these pursuits, and the strong body is a strong mind, which leads to greater self-direction. But the hedonism value for me, while I want all those goals, I also want to lie on the couch at the end of a long day and just like eat things that are tasty, right? Which works against the fat loss goals that I have as well. And so often, the goals that we set, they need to be edited, first of all. So it's not enough to set a goal, because a goal, I write about it in the book, a goal is really just a prediction. Whenever we're setting a goal, we're making a prediction about where our current and our planned actions will take us. That's all a goal is a prediction. And the challenge is we become attached to those predictions. And so we don't change them when we need to. And then those predictions, which are wrong most of the time, they turn into expectations for how things will go, right? How often does your to-do list turn into an expectation list? Which turns, so the goal, which is really a prediction, turns into an expectation, which we don't achieve them because we don't change them as conditions around us change. And so it leads to disappointment. This is the cycle of goals that we so often fall in. And so I think the first step is to see goals for what they are, which is a prediction. And we're usually bad at predicting things. I don't know if you've ever tried predicting things.
Well, I tend to think about predictions in terms of like what's going to happen in the world and study it enough to
Yeah.
know that even certainly, let's say finance, because I've got a little bit of a background in finance, post-secondary education, and obviously I
Yeah.
like keeping an eye on it for my own investments. And you have there's an account that I enjoy following, and he was recently a guy named Jimmy Chong. He's a Canadian too, and he was talking about how Ray Dalio. Now, Ray Dalio, the founder of Bridgewater, is one of the most
Yeah.
famous investors in the entire world, and he was going through all of these predictions that Dalio has made the last several years and how they were all pretty much blatantly wrong. So you
Yeah.
have the ostensibly smartest and sometimes the loudest and most attention-seeking minds, but Bridgewater
Yeah.
for a long time had a very big track record of success. And in fact, economists in general have a dubious track record at
Yeah.
predicting what's going to happen because of how many complex factors go into what changes on a world stage
Yeah.
that could affect the economy, etc. But I don't think it's necessarily that different when it comes to setting goals for fitness. And
100%.
the
Yeah.
more you scale out the time scale, the more potential things that can interfere.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. Ray Dalio has predicted probably 20 of the last two recessions. It's pretty hilarious how doom and gloom he is. But we're the same way with our own life. You know, we see things through a lens of optimism around New Year's, right? New year, new me. And then we see things, then everything hits the fan and we see things through this pessimistic lens when we end up disappointed that our expectations, which were really predictions, didn't pan out as we thought they would. And this is the interesting thing about the science of goal attainment, which is really what the book is about. We need to see ourselves as a subject in our own goals. So we set the goal, right? We set an outcome goal and maybe a process goal too, which is just the series of actions that we'll need to take in order to achieve the thing. So we have the outcome, the process, and then we have to observe. Okay, how does this outcome influence this progress? If my goal is to lose 10 pounds of body fat and my process goal is to intermittent fast for 16 to 20 hours each day or whatever it might be, observe. How is it going? Like we need that feedback loop around the goals that we have. And so one big idea that I've come to love that I learned from a Buddhist monk of all people. I chatted with a lot of monks in addition to the scientists and the researchers in piecing together this idea, this book, is our self-reflective capacity, right? We need to tap into our self-reflective capacity as we attain our goals, because if we never reflect, we'll never improve. We'll just keep doing things as they are, and then we'll end up disappointed because we don't revise things as they go. So I'm a big advocate for, and this is something everybody can and I think should do, make a list of your goals. What are the outcomes in your life that you're trying to make a reality? And then under each, put the process. What process are you investing in order to make this goal a reality, or in order to try to make this goal a reality? And then have this reflective ritual. I like to do this every week, every Sunday, where you look at each goal and think, okay, how is this working? is this sticking for me? Is this something that is the outcome that I'm trying to produce rooted in my values? Is the process the best possible process, or is there something different that I should be doing in order to make my rate of progress faster on a goal? Because that's another thing too, right? So every goal has these three things. It has the outcome, which is the story of change we're making. It has the process, which are the steps we're following, and then it has the rate of progress, which is it's what it sounds like. It's how fast we're making progress. And so I have these defined for every single goal on my list. And I'll look at my rates of progress. I'll update them every week. And if it's low, I'll think, okay, why? What, like from a non-judgmental way, why? Did the hot water heater flood the basement and that prevented me from working out for a few days? Because repair people needed to come through the house. Or was there a fundamental lack of motivation because the outcome wasn't connected to my values? Was the process not effective or not something that stuck with me? Was there no accountability? Was there no structure? And so it's these self-reflective rituals that are essential in this process of goal attainment. Without them, we just go back to autopilot mode.
Do you ever think about or put into this framework, you're consistently talking about moving towards things, but the
Yeah.
moving away from things. So I think the best way of framing this, I like Charlie Munger's principle of inversion. It's like you
Mm,
get very clear on what you want, but then very
mm,
clear on the outcomes you don't want. And then you
mm.
systematically look at, all right, well, what are the behaviors that would lead to the outcome you don't want? And then you fucking
Yeah.
set firm boundaries around not doing them. Does this
Yeah.
fit in your framework?
Yeah, it does. Well, one of the most effective things for goal attainment from the research is anticipating obstacles. So if you look at any one of your goal, and I love that you quote Charlie Munger. I'm a big fan of Charlie Munger and Warren. I hope Warren ends up good. He just retired, of course. Anticipating obstacles ahead of time is one of the best things that we can do for our goals. So it's similar to what Charlie was saying, where when you have a goal, so there's something that in the book I call it our timeline of goal attainment,
Hmm.
which is it exists for every single goal. So there are a series of actions that we are going to need to take through time in order to get to the terminal point of a goal where we have achieved it or where it becomes a maintenance goal, which I think are also underrated. We need more maintenance goals because there's a lot that we're doing well, frankly. But one of the best things that we can do is when you start the goal, when your motivation is high, use that time to plan. So imagine the goal has got like what obstacles are going to come up with a goal over the next month, over the next year, over that timeline of goal attainment. And then how can you combat those ahead of time? Can you set another process goal in order to, combat that? If you have a new workout routine, can you anticipate the obstacles? Do you have a lot of travel in your schedule? Do you need to really be thoughtful about the hotels you stay at or schedule another day in some places? This is one of my favorite things to do when I travel is I schedule an extra day somewhere and I have like a nice meal. I do a nice yoga class at a local studio and feel amazing. It takes a lot of the stress out of the travel too. It's one of my favorite rituals. Bring my camera around the city and take photography, photos and stuff. Like, how can you get out ahead of the obstacles that you're going to face over this timeline of goal attainment? Because obstacles are very, very, very easy to anticipate ahead of time, but usually near impossible to deal with the moment they arise. You don't want to be on the flight to somewhere and think, oh shit, I have no idea where I'm going to work out for the next 4 days.
Mm.
You won't.
A quick sponsor break for my current aspiring coach listeners. This episode is brought to you by Train Heroic. If you know me, you know I only work with sponsors I use personally and where I know the people behind the product. Train Heroic is the best online coaching software in the industry. Not only is it a great platform for one-on-one coaching, it's fantastic for group coaching and selling standalone programs. TrainerOak is used by some of my trusted friends, so I switched my online group program here, and my members love it, raving about its ease of use. Having a dedicated app means far greater reliability for my clients and has been by far my best experience with any online coaching software. TrainerOak is a proven and stable industry leader, meaning it isn't going to suddenly disappear, one of the biggest risks in choosing an online coaching software. When you start a free trial today, you'll get 90 days free to experience why I love and trust this platform. You'll get full support from their team, who've been a joy for me to work with. And I trust TrainerOak and the people behind it. Here's how to activate your free 90-day trial. It's 2 important steps. Number 1, go to www.trainheroic.com/liftfree. Step 2, reply to the email you get. It should be trials@trainheroic.com, and let them know I sent you, or go to the links in the show notes. I want to go a little bit back in time. This is a little bit of a pivot, but one of the things I've enjoyed about reading your books in the order that they were released.
Yeah.
So I felt like I've traveled through your journey with you. The Productivity Project, there's a lot of personal experiments with all of the popular literature, research, media fluff on productivity. You tested it all. Hyperfocus.
Did you read that when it first came out, like in 2016 or more recently?
It would have been 2016, but it would have been not terribly long afterwards. So
cool.
It was a long time ago. And then Hyperfocus is clearly an intentional refinement of literally how to, it's a deepening and more focused part of productivity, right? Yeah. On the things that matter. And then how to calm your mind. I mean, that was your come to Jesus moment when you pushed it too far, dealt with burnout, had an anxiety attack on stage.
Yeah.
And because you're pushing productivity to the bleeding edge. So I'm curious, what practices continue to safeguard your emotional well-being and energy with all of this research across a productive career?
Meditation is top for me. My meditation cushion, I don't think there's a video, but you can see it at least.
Yeah, there's video.
Oh, okay, sweet.
There'll be
a
video
different sweater and done my hair or something. But meditation is one of my favorite rituals for this. Just stepping outside of my own story and my own attachment to things. I find I can just shed a lot of the baggage that I carry around mentally. And I find that it actually sharpens my attention too. So there are these dividends so I did an Audible original called How to Train Your Mind. And talking about the productivity benefits of meditation. And the golden rule for any bit of productivity advice is for every minute you do it, how many minutes do you make back? And meditation, you make an awful lot of time back with. I would wager I do half an hour each and every day, at least. These days is more 45, but around there. And I'd make those back 2 or 3 times over, probably more than that. For every minute we spend meditating, I think we make several back because our focus is sharpened. We get less distracted. We're more present with what we're doing. We're more engaged. So things take less time to do. We're more strategic. We're more intentional. Our mind even wanders to think about the future more. And so meditation, and also really the basics, putting good fuel into my body. I joke about Uber Eats, but I really love putting good fuel into my body. I feel better and the energy is longer lasting. And honestly, I'm not going to lie, keeping my caffeine consumption very, very low so that when I see you crushing a monster there, but that keeps me at the ground level. And so when I want caffeine, I actually benefit from the boost that it gives me. And so I can use it strategically, but also when I have a lot going on and there's a lot of stress, I need to do like from keynote to keynote to keynote or something. I can just not have any and let the day be my caffeine.
It's sort of like a subtle little running joke now that I'm sort of like playing around with my monster energies. My good friend Nick Shaw loves these things as well. And I've sort of joked about this before, but actually I'm kind of dead serious. If anybody knows someone at Monster, and if I could get sponsored by White Monster energy drinks, I would
The white
absolutely,
one.
oh, yeah, I love the white ones. I would absolutely say yes to that. I'm also, I don't know if it'll go anywhere, but I'm trying to get a sponsorship with Corona Zero because I'm actually a really big
Oh,
fan of 0% alcoholic beverages now.
yeah,
It's not that I've stopped drinking alcohol forever again. I just drink it almost next to nothing. And I'm a former bar owner and lived that
yeah,
life in the past life. But anyway, so these
yeah,
are sort of like playfully serious things. I'm like, if all of a sudden I could roll up with a White Monster and a Corona Zero sponsorship, I would be a very happy person. I have great sponsors. I love them. I'm not getting rid of them. I want to add some
yeah.
more great stuff on. Okay, that's a
Let's
total
make it
side quest.
happen, man. Let's make it
We'll see.
happen.
We'll
Yeah,
see. I mean, you
let's
know what?
go.
This is part of like this is aligning with values, and it's also goals. I have to get clear on the goals on this, but it's also putting out the universe and working towards it, which I also think is, the law of attraction. It's not as wooey as people think it is. Uh,
Yeah.
okay, are do you have rules, guidelines about what you say yes to?
Work wise or personal wise?
I think both, but perhaps this is through the lens of work, given the fact that you are one of the world's most leading authorities on productivity. Sounds cool, huh?
Uh, Yeah. Say that again, but soft. No, I'm just kidding. um, I say no to pretty much everything. I'm not going to lie to you. And people always think I'm so busy, but I'm busy around book launches
Mm.
because there's a lot of opportunity to get out there. But I'm actually quite not busy. I like to keep a lot of wide open space on my calendar because then I get to think and then I get to ideate. Because I find the thing with my own work is success hides problems. Because you get so busy, and I find I see a lot of creators and authors and writers fall into this trap where they have a big book, they have a big thing that goes viral or something, whatever the equivalent in their line of work is. And then so they do the offshoots from it, right? They write a book that's huge, and so they start speaking about it, and they do this about it, and then they do that about it. And they get so busy that they end up compromising the situation that led them to create the
Mm.
book in the first place. And so that's a trap I'm terrified of falling into. And so I'm very intentional, is the word, about my time, where when I'm spending my time doing something, like these days it's interviews, right? Because I've got this new book out. My mind is mush at the end of a day, and I love it because I'm so excited to share these ideas. But after that, it's like lockdown mode, wide open space in the schedule again. So it really has to be more fruitful than the science, than the silence and the quiet. And because I look at, if I have a quiet day where maybe I have maybe I have a meeting or two or something like that's unavoidable, but then the rest should be white space for me. And that's so, so valuable. And then I think when I am thinking about saying yes to something, is this if this takes if I do this instead of generating a new idea, will that be time well spent?
Do you think a lot of people just habitually crowd out the space for their mind to, I mean, you talk about this in Hyperfocus. And by the way, I can't stress enough, intentional is fantastic. So far as I've dug into it, Hyperfocus is amazing as well. I recently mentioned you to my friend Luca Hosvar, who was just recently on, and he's a book savant, but he had not been familiar with your work. So, and I pointed him to, I think I actually pointed him to How to Calm Your Mind, knowing Luca.
Mm.
Anybody who knows Luca will immediately understand why I do. He's a maniac, right? He's a workhorse. But next
Yeah.
thing you know, I see him sharing Hyperfocus on his Instagram story, and it's like he gravitated that. But within Hyperfocus, you talk about scatter focus. I'm trying to remember.
Mm.
There's two. You will remember better than me, but there are two types of focus, and scatter focus was one of them. And how
Yeah.
allowing your mind to wander is actually a key part of the idea generation process. So it feels like it ties together.
Yeah.
And I feel like most people just crowd this out because
Yeah.
it's the devices in our hands is the classic one, right? Do you want
Mhm.
to speak to that a bit, maybe?
Yeah. Well, what I would, though, I think a helpful way to frame it is if you think to when your best, most brilliant ideas have struck you, what were you doing? Right? You probably weren't focused on something. You probably weren't checking email. Maybe you were taking a shower or going for a run or something. Because when our mind has a chance to wander, it unearths ideas that we would never have arrived at otherwise. Right? We bounce between the past to the present to the future. And when we deliberately let our mind wander, intentionally let our mind wander, that's a mode I call scatter focus. So mind wandering is not good when you want to focus, right? We all know this. We're trying to hunker down and get something done, and then our mind is somewhere else and it's trying to do something else. But then you have the times when you're taking the shower and all these ideas are coming to the surface of your mind. And so it's a really helpful mode that allows us to generate just an incredible number of ideas. And you're exactly right. We do have these two essentially attentional modes that we bounce between throughout the day. Either we're focused or we're unfocused, right? In the research, it's called being perceptually coupled with something, right? So we're engaged, we're locked in, we're in the driver's seat, we're perceptually coupled. So, our senses, our thinking, and is all aligned with one another. Then we have the moments where we're just kind of, daydreaming a little bit, but that's where the ideas come to us. It's also where the plans come to us. So I really view productivity as a process of becoming more intentional over time. And so anything that aids that process of becoming more intentional is an incredible strategy for productivity. Um, it's something, if I look at the last 10 years of researching this topic, maybe more at this point, um, becoming more intentional is what all the best productivity strategies have in common. And the mind wandering mode, the scatter focus mode, allows us to get there. We actually think about our future intentions 14 times as often when our mind is wandering versus when we're focused on something. 14 times as often. That's how much more we consider our goals when our mind is wandering. That's incredible, right? And so it's in that way that focus is amazing, right? But focusing on stuff all day long is one of the worst things that we can do for our productivity. It's what it would be great if we could, but we can't. And so we need to work within that limit when this idea of intention is so worth doubling down on.
To your
It's
point,
interesting,
oh,
I say this to you as a Canadian. Is Luca Canadian or no?
so he is a Slovenian who lives
Slovenian.
in the Seattle area.
Seattle. Okay, so this is what I find interesting. So Hyperfocus, the book, it's my top book globally, but in Canada, it totally flopped.
Hmm.
People don't want Hyperfocus in Canada, even though globally it's the top book. Whereas How to Calm Your Mind has done well internationally. It's the top book in Canada by a wide, wide margin, like 2 or 3x the next one. In the US, it totally flopped. And so Canadians want, calm, and they don't want hyperfocus. And then Americans want hyperfocus but not calm. And internationally, it's kind of mixed.
I can imagine the Productivity Project did very well in the US, especially in corporate culture
Yeah,
worlds. You
yeah,
raised something
yeah,
that is interesting. I'm glad you said it with a sense of humor. So, perhaps, are you familiar with my friend Jonathan Goodman? So ooh, so Jonathan
yeah,
deep roots in the fitness industry, and he is about to release his second book. So I've already recorded with him, but it will air after this, and it's called
yeah,
Unhinged Habits. And the book is
yeah,
really about sprints of intense effort and life in seasons, which I think is the nature of an author's experience. So I think you would love it. But Jonathan also was very open and transparent through his media about how his first major published book, The Obvious Choice, which is a great marketing book, how it flopped
Huh.
for his expectations. I think it is gaining traction now because it is a
Hmm.
great book. But he's been very, I think, stoic and philosophical about it and the journey.
Hmm.
But you mentioned that your books use the word flop in certain places. How do you deal with the expectations and then what ends up happening? Because we see this
Yeah.
sometimes. You alluded to something earlier about an author, and I thought of Mark Manson's. I mean, he hit, lightning in a bottle with The Subtle Art of Not Giving
Yeah.
a Fuck, which I like to sort of make fun of as being a bit overrated. It's actually quite good. But he couldn't follow it up, and he entered a state of, by his own admission, great like depression and
Uh,
not being able to live up to that. Lots of people talk about James Clear having not really written a book in the wake of the smash hit that was Atomic Habits. Doesn't seem
yeah.
like he's in a rush. How do you follow that up? So through that
Yeah.
lens, how do you deal with the cycle of, well, I've got this book coming out and I'm scared shitless it's not going to do well?
Well, thankfully this one is doing well.
Great.
I honestly, I don't care that much. I don't care that much. I just pulled up the sales statistics,
Hmm.
and Hyperfocus is at about 400,000 copies. Productivity is at 200,000. Calm is 100,000, but it's the most recent. How to Train Your Mind is 250,000, but I capped it at 250. I think it's at about 500 now. Intentional, it's the first week. I think we're at 3 or 4,000 copies so far. I'm happy with that. I'm very happy with that, actually. Um, I don't care though, like I truly don't care. And my whole reason for writing these things is to help other people out.
Hmm.
And as long as some of these things are helping other people out, that's fine. And I find it interesting. It's funny you mentioned John. He texted me the other day because he found my
Yeah.
Hyperfocus
Okay.
book at a random bookstore in Sanur, Bali. They had it they had it positioned on the shelf right next to Why We Die and Tiny Traumas. So there you
Okay.
go.
Hmm.
But it's cool. It's like a small bookstore in Bali. But like the interesting thing about books too is I don't really have expect. So my goal with the book is to earn out the advance, and I've done that with every book. And so I'm happy about that. And I really want to serve other people through them. And I know having these books out for a long time, that sales really ebb and flow, not just at the beginning, but over time as well. So, like Hyperfocus it's been out for, God, I don't even know, 7, 8 years now. And it'll have these random sales spikes where it'll do a few thousand copies in a week. Or the Productivity Project is over 10 years old now, which is kind of wild. And it'll do 1,000 or 2 in a week, 10 years out from publication. And different. So I know that books will be around forever, right? That's why you write a book, is for it to be around for forever. And I don't write really topical books. I write these evergreen books that are hopefully as relevant 10 years after you first read it than they are the first time you read it. But I don't really have these expectations with things, or these fake benchmarks that I measure my success against. I feel almost as though I have nothing to prove to myself at this point. As weird as that might sound, I guess. I have no things. I have no targets really.
Oh, I think it's wonderful. I cannot remember the name of the principle. You may, but, and this is a side quest, but
Yeah.
the longer that, usually it's applied to books, but almost anything that's
Mm,
quote in print or available as media, the longer that it is in print, the more likely it is to stay in print. So if something has been in print for
mm,
5 years, it
mm,
is understood to be, you could almost guarantee that it will continue to be for at least another 5 years. If something has been
mm.
around for 50 years, there's a very good chance it will last 50 years. And
Yeah.
there's something that, hey, it's a proven commodity, it's done well. It's baked into the fact that it's got something that has lasting potential. But there is a name
Hmm.
for the principle. But if your books have done this
Oh,
well over
interesting.
time, then there is a principle that has shown up in particular with literary publishing that will suggest that they will continue in well into the future to be productive, popular.
Yeah, and this is I don't know. This just goes to maybe my approach is a good fit for that model,
Mm.
where I want to find the science behind these things. I want to find the truth behind these things and the evergreen ideas here. And so that's why I draw so much from evergreen sources, the science behind something. It changes sometimes. And so you need to go back and you need to update things sometimes. I don't have to often though, you know. But the science does change. But the other principles, I borrow a lot from Buddhism in
Mm.
writing these books. I'm a practicing Buddhist, just to put it out there. And I find that these principles are, it's a religion that observes religion is generous sometimes.
Mm.
One of the monks that I admire, he says it's a religion, but only for tax purposes, which I think it's more of a tool belt than anything. But those principles are based on the causes and effects within the mind, and so I try to look at where those observations that come from meditation largely overlaps with the research, and then write about that from the practical tactical bent, where you look at, okay, how does this help us become more productive and accomplished and find more meaning in our days too. And so hopefully that leads to these evergreen topics where, focus has always been a capacity of our mind. Calm has always been a capacity of productivity has always been something that we pursue. Intention is the heart of productivity. It connects us all. Um, and so yeah, hopefully that's the intention behind it at least.
A quick break from this episode to shout out RP Strength and the RP Hypertrophy app. I have a big confession. I've never used a coach before. I've always auto-regulated my training for decades. But I've known Dr. Mike Isertel and Nick Shaw, the founders of RP, for years, and I'll get behind anything they create, including years of reading their books, consuming their media, attending their seminars, and having them as guests on the show. And I've been using the RP Hypertrophy app now for several months. And several things have happened. It forced me to make smaller and more gradual but better increases in weight volume across time, like putting 5-pound plates on each side of a leg press. Like, who does that? Never before. Only 45s. It cut out the jump volume. It made my workouts faster and more efficient. I show up with a plan. I didn't have to think about what to do. I feel more accountable having a log my progress. And I don't skip things because I don't feel like it. If hiring a one-on-one coach isn't for you, using the RP Hypertrophy app is the next best thing to manage your gains and to take the guesswork out of your program. There's a 30-day money-back guarantee, so you can try it risk-free, and if you don't like it, they'll give you your money back. And I've also got you a $50 US dollar discount, so go to rpstrength.com/coats and use the code COATSRP, or go to the link below in the show notes. That's rpstrength.com/coats and use the code COATSRP. Okay, so you alluded to something that I think is worth asking with the limited time we have left.
Yeah.
In Intentional, you do mention SMART goals, which is something we hear through the business world, and
Yeah.
it sometimes bleeds into fitness, right? That your goals are supposed
Yeah.
to be what? God, what the hell? What does SMART stand
Oh,
for? I know M is
well, there's
measurable. What is?
yeah, so it actually varies depending on what acronym. Like there's a lot of different, but usually specific, measurable,
Mm.
attainable. R is realistic, T is time bound.
And you went into it and found that it is just simply not supported by research at all,
Yeah,
virtually at all. So
yeah,
you want to give like a very brief breakdown of
yeah,
why they're not necessarily very useful.
yeah. So this is, I should say that I expected SMART goals to be a shoo-in for the book. I expected to put them in, and so I was looking at the research. I thought, okay, what is the research actually? Because I don't want to put it in if it's not science backed. And I was shocked that they're not only not helpful, they can be counterproductive to our goals
Hmm.
in a lot of cases. So there's a bunch of reasons that this is the case. First of all, SMART goals started as an article that some management consultant wrote for leading more effective teams. And so it wasn't even a goal setting ritual to begin with. But it also, there's absolutely zero foundations in the research for SMART goals. So first of all, there's redundancy in the criteria, right? Like, aren't measurable goals also attainable or realistic? Aren't attainable goals realistic kind of the same thing? And specificity, the S at the very start, that doesn't matter if you're in what is called the learning stage of a goal. So we have these two stages of a goal where it's learning and then performance, right? So when you're first feeling out a goal, you're learning, you're realizing what works, you're realizing what you want, and then there's the performance stage. And and if you're in the learning stage, the more specific you make something, the less helpful it can be because you kind of pigeonhole yourself into doing something that might not be that effective. And there are there are many other reasons that these are the redundancy, the lack of mapping on top of, not to mention good research, but any research whatsoever. Um, but it shows that, we love this catchy acronym, right? Something that can be encapsulated into something, and it sounds so good. It sounds like it should work. But really what allows us, what the science of goal attainment says, to attain a goal, we just need to become more intentional across the different layers of intention in our life. And so SMART goals, the research actually identifies that there's a lot of quote unquote research waste that is occurring around SMART goals because they're overly researched, but people don't bother to look at Google Scholar before they conduct the study, I guess.
Something else that I took from you, you mentioned this in the book. I interpret it this way, that one of the problems with SMART goals is they may not be challenging enough. And I think that the key
Mhm.
to successful goal attainment is to find this sweet spot. I've seen this talked about in
Yeah,
lots of places
yeah,
where it can't be so challenging that it's discouraging, but it
yeah,
has to be challenging enough that it is stimulating and interesting. And SMART
yeah,
goals seem to come below that threshold.
yeah. Like having a goal that's merely attainable, you actually perform better when something is more challenging. When something is more than just attainable, but there's a challenge level to it that mobilizes you, that causes you like a bit of the good kind of stress. And so it's like, let's go, like, let's do this thing. That's the attitude you go into it with, instead of just, oh, something attainable will be fine, I guess. Like you accomplish more when you break out of that complacency and actually realize something that is challenging. It's really quite so yet another reason that SMART goals aren't that effective.
Everybody can find you on Instagram. But I know you're not like a big social media personality in this lens. And I think that actually, if you know your story, read the books, it's baked into your journey. The
Yeah.
books speak for themselves. But Instagram, it's Chris Bailey, AUTH, abbreviated author.
Yeah.
Is there any other media you would like to direct people to? Obviously, we want people to go pick up the book Intentional. Go check it out.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. Most of my audience is like in the analog world. So,
Mhm.
the people who read books and listen to books, I suppose, too. But chrisbailey.com is where you can find me, and my newsletters on there. That's a big source of where I communicate with people and what I write. And so I try to be helpful on there. I'm not on social media that much. I haven't really invested much in a social media presence or anything. I don't know why anybody follows me on there. You do, I know. Thank you. Nice to be acquainted with you, buddy. But
Well,
but I
well,
don't know why you follow me.
I'll actually explain this because I said off air, I I don't follow most of the authors that I read. And I do it
Mm,
very deliberately because there are certain
yeah,
authors, and I'm going to throw out his name, Nassim Nicholas Taleb. Anti-Fragile is a fantastic book. I
yeah.
do not like the way that Nassim shows up in the world and the way he behaves when it
Mm,
comes to things outside of the brilliance of his book. So a long time ago, I kind of said, all right, well, I'm not going to generally follow the social media of the actors I like or the
mm,
authors I like or the musicians I like. I started making exceptions to it. And then so a while back, I said, okay, I'm going to follow a select number and you happen to be one of them. And you follow me back. And so we got chatting. So that worked out really well. But what has it led to? It's led to the opportunity to get you on here. I've had some other great mainstream published authors. My friend Jonathan Goodman has obviously grown into that. He and I have been friends a long time, but Brad
mm,
Stulberg, Dr. Ben Ryan with his book, How Why Brains Need Friends. and others. So it's been a great opportunity to bring great guests like you that I
Mm.
otherwise wouldn't have access to. And I can vouch for your social media. It's chill. It doesn't get into some stuff that I'm like, I got to unfollow this guy. So it's great.
Oh, that's good. I feel with the book stuff, I just like repost what I see tagged sometimes, and that
Mm.
might get annoying, but I don't know. I don't really know what I'm doing.
But either way, you're doing a great job with the books. I
Oh,
love
thank
them.
you.
I mean, proof here. Anybody listening could tell it's like, yes, I've actually like dove into and processed the material from the book. So I can't endorse them enough. But go start with intentional, work your way back, guys. Chris,
Mm.
thank you for taking the time. I appreciate you.
Oh, thanks for having me, man. That was fun.